What we basically did last week is discuss the meaning of hatava, what the aspect of hatava is. And we said that we didn't examine it, what it means to be mative. We did not examine that. We just simply said that the Rebbeinu Shem wants to be mative. Why didn't we examine it more closely? One of the main reasons why we didn't examine it more closely is because when we say that the Rebbeinu Shem has a rotzon, wants to be mative, wants generally come out of deprivation, some lack or lack in yourself. You want something means that in some way, if you want something, generally speaking, wanting something means that whatever you want, whatever the object of that desire is, you're lacking in. So, to say that the Rebbeinu Shem wants to be mative, it seems to imply that the Rebbeinu Shem has a need to be mative. You see, a need means a deprivation of some sort. That's not true. The Rebbeinu Shem doesn't need to be mative. It's not true of him in that sense. See what I'm saying? That's why we don't examine this really closely. It's a very difficult to examine. It's things which are very high, that kind of examination. The only thing we say is that in the world's form start that the rotten that we see revealed in the world is that the Rebbeinu Shem has a rotten lehetiv. That's what we see. We don't examine what's beyond that at this point. This is we're way in the distance. What does it mean? What's beyond that? What transcends? It goes beyond his rotten lehetiv. How does he relate to his rotten? You know what I mean? That's really talking about the Rebbeinu Shem himself. You're dealing with a very, very delicate situation. So he has a rotzen lehetiv. So what we basically examined last week was we said hetiv. Okay, the Rebbeinu Shem wants to be mativ. How does he see hatava being fulfilled? So he sees it. He needs a recipient, and the recipient is a zulasa, that which is outside of him. So he creates the self. Remember the neshama with the self. Now he has a recipient. He has a makabel. Then we say, okay, fine. Now what is the hatava? You got yourself a makabel. What's the hatava? So this is what we examined last week. The week before we examined the notion of recipient, and the week following, which was last week, we examined the concept of what the hatava is all about. And we said that the hatava essentially is that the greatest simcha or joy that anything can experience is the perception of the Rebbeinu Shem himself. This yields an incredible sense of shleimus, beauty. It's the perception of absolute beauty, you see, which is like the greatest simcha that a neshama can have. And this is the hatava, essentially what he wants to give. And we said that there was counterparts to that hatava in this world, right? We talked about dveikus last week. That's that dveikus, or a very intimate relationship with the Rebbeinu Shem, of tremendous love for the Rebbeinu Shem, and a very intimate relationship generates that kind of feeling, which also has a tremendous power behind it. And it gives the capacity for people to become very big tzaddikim. They're not tzaddikim because they're afflicting their souls and like driving them crazy. They're not doing that. There's something more. They're exchanging chetzonis for pnimius. And I think that we more or less caught these are those basic concepts. Today we're going to speak about a very, very fundamental concept, and it's not a difficult concept, but you will see now why we had to do everything we did up to this point. You will begin to see why we needed the previous information. It's subtle, and it's going to provide certain critical information. The key question that we asked, basically, and is why does the world look the way it does? What do I mean? What one of our chashuva people here mentioned last week is the fact that we see that the world is filled with suffering. It's filled with effort and shtadlus. You got to work hard to get what you want. There's a lot of suffering, there's a lot of pain. Why? Why all this stuff? Why all this pain and all this suffering in order to be in a molach?
For something good, you have to work hard.
Yeah, but the question is why? Why did the Rebbeinu like that? You're right.
To appreciate it.
No.
That's
okay, but that's begging the question. Why do you have to work hard in order to appreciate?
Since Adam has been like that.
Yeah, since Adam was the first.
Adam never had to work for anything.
No, but he had to work. The mitzvah, mitzvahs work.
Yeah, but with mitzvah can be passive or can be active.
No, but it's still a shtadlus. You have to be me'ageh, connected to the sitl achad, the yitzhah. What you mean, you're right. You never have to work physically because they have to practice lechem.
Right.
Came in after the clothes.
Right, you never have to
To work for his living, but that doesn't matter. They fundamentally, in order to work, other have to work for Olam Haba.
Wasn't where he was before the face with the apple?
No, that was Gan Eden.
Are we going to get into that aspect of Adam and what he has to do? And
Yes, we will. But we still have, we're long distance from Adam Rishon. We learn even before them.
We only by the neshama only. We by the neshama.
But by the neshama, we're not even in the goof yet. We haven't. Come here, there's no goof around there. You know, we're really in the primeval state. You know.
Codem my separation.
One was where we figure this stuff out, but the situation is so that's what we want to understand. And essentially the question really, to put it in more formal, really sophisticated terms, the question is like this. Fine. The punishment wants to be made good. He makes poof, there's an neshama. Good. So what's the next step? The neshama perceives him, right? The punishment creates a makom. That makom is called olam or Eden. Eden means pleasure. It's an olam of tainuk. The neshama perceives him. Fine. The neshama is now happy. And the punishment's happy. Everybody's happy. Well, not that he has to be happy, but essentially everyone's happy. That's the way it should have begun. That's the way it should end. Right? The punishment makes neshamas. One neshama, minimally one neshama. Fine.
we did his Torah.
He makes the recipient. He creates a location or a matzav, it's a situation where this hatova is generated and delivered, a delivery system, and that's the end of it. Right? That should have been the beginning and the end of the situation. What's this whole situation about? That's when your question in a more direct, what is all the situation about? Yeah, well, yes. Okay. That's what we're going to try and answer tonight. What is all the situation? Why this incredible complexity?
So you're going to get into the concept of dynamic.
Yes, right. Yeah, what is it? Right. The reason why this situation exists is because there's a certain term called Namadik Sutra. Now what we're going to do tonight is discuss this term called Namadik Sutra, and we're going to also discuss the origin of Namadik Sutra. To the best extent that we're capable.
In other words, why such a thing exists.
In the first place, yes. And we'll think. What you said is very true. That man's got to work for the stuff to appreciate it. Yeah, but why do you have to work for something to appreciate it? Just get it and you appreciate it when you get it, right? For example, let's say for example I walk over you and I say, this is I walk over and I give you $1,000 one day. I say, Heshel, yeah. I put $1,000 in front of you and I don't say a word. And I say, Heshel, I want you to have this $1,000. You look at me and you take it. I want to take it. Next week I come over and say, I meet you again, and I say, Heshel, I want $1,000. I do this week after week after week. What will be your reaction?
When?
I keep on doing it. No, all the time. After a while,
you will expect it.
You will expect it. Okay, that's the thing.
You won't appreciate it. It loses the chashivas.
Why?
Because you're going to get used to it.
The novelty wears off. She was just called novelty in the one. Once the novelty wears off and the standard thing, there goes the...
It's a kimkmet.
It's a kimkmet, right? That's the one. I deserve it. Why? Because
I've been getting it. To get it.
I've been getting it till now.
Yeah.
And you become so conditioned to getting it. When you don't get it, you feel a sense of deprivation.
That you've been denied your right.
Right.
When wouldn't that happen? Okay. In order for me to put
if I get it 1 week.
Let's say I put it 1 week. When would that
more
happen?
and more.
Why, the less you give, it wouldn't happen. If you give me once, twice, then you stop for fun. I figured it was 9-12. Give me 3 months in a row, and then you start giving me, I'd be insulted.
Okay, what happens if I put down 1,000 and say, I'm going to give you 1,000, but I want you to do something for me for the 1,000? And you say, what? And I say, I want you to do X. Right? You do X, and then I put down 1,000. You take it. The next week I say, here's 1,000, but I want you to do Y. Do Y and you get it. Let's say every week I put 1,000, but I tell you what I want done for it, and you do it. Would you lose the novelty?
No, but then you will feel that I'm doing something. It's like a job. You're doing something. You're getting paid. It's a different.
Why didn't? Is the novelty wears off?
But it's different when you give something. It's different when you give something. It's psychologically it's different. And
How?
When you're doing something, you feel, well, I've done something for it, and then kind of I deserve it. When I get it, you get used to getting it, and then you feel the kimper. But if you really think into it, you will sit down and come down to basics and say, why am I getting it? I mean, there's no reason I should be getting it. I shouldn't be angry at the person who's not getting it.
Let me ask you something. If I kept on putting $1,000 down, think very carefully. Every week, without asking you to do a thing, you think you can take it? You saying you could the next day? It's okay. You're saying that think very carefully this. If I kept on putting $1,000 after a year, every time, I mean, you pay your bills, everything is great. But after a year, I just put down, you come here that week, $1,000. Goodbye. Next week, $1,000. That's what I do all the time for a year straight. Now, the novelty wears off.
You start questioning, why am I getting it?
No, let's say there's no question. I want to give it to you. Does anything else happen after a year besides the fact that the novelty wears off? Please,
You come to feel you deserve it.
well, how do you deserve it? You didn't do a thing for it.
But you become so conditioned to getting it, you feel there must be whatever psychology is. There's a reason in your head you're taking it, but after a while comes a point. It's like a salary.
No, you start thinking.
You can't feel you deserve it because you've done nothing to earn it.
No.
So you can't develop that feeling. And it's true that you lose the feeling of the novelty, the excitement of it, because the novelty wears off. There's something else develop.
Apprehension.
No. Think in yourself. I don't want to just don't guess. No, don't guess.
Suspicion, in my case.
No, there's no suspicion. I'm not. It's not something. There is another feeling that will develop.
After a year, you have to pay tax.
You develop fear with the IRS.
Yeah, but just think, how would you feel if I was every week give you $1,000? How would it make you feel? To begin with, you feel happy, but after a while,
I don't feel anything.
That they feel there must be a reason why you're getting it.
Why do you have to talk yourself into it?
Because after a while, you have a guilt that you're taking money for not doing anything, and then you
lose your sense of pride.
you start rationalizing, and you say,
Yeah.
start rationalizing, and you say,
maybe
probably I deserve it. That's why I'm getting it.
Archie, what do you want to say?
Stop working and doing all this.
Well, that's what you want to do if you get enough money. But that besides that. Okay, the truth of the matter is, and this is a situation that what generally happens is, if you keep on getting handouts, after a while, a person becomes more bullish. You begin to develop a certain sense of humiliation, or a certain sense of you're giving me money, like I'm not doing anything, I'm not earning, I'm not deserving it, why are you giving it to me? Not suspicion-wise, but you feel it's difficult to take it after a while. It's a certain busha that comes in.
like taking welfare.
Even guys want welfare, like ethnic minorities want welfare. They want welfare, but there is no guy that will ever take a handout purely for the handout. They'll justify it in some way. They'll say we deserve it because of the hundreds of years we've been in persecution. White man has taken everything, or black man. It's right. Yeah.
Rationalization.
If you take any person and you keep on giving him a handout, like a person wants to, let's say you want to ask tzedakah, an ani. It's ani's muvuyish to ask tzedakah. Why? The truth of the matter is, if you don't do anything to deserve it, why should you get it really? Not because the other guy looked at him, but the point is the fundamental situation, which is called self-respect, demands that if you want to have value, if you want to say, I'm worth something, I have certain chashivas, you feel intrinsically that chashivas must stem from something you did, you accomplished. You were responsible for getting what you have. That's how you earn self-respect. You see, if your life was just a pure situation of taking all the time, that all your life was all pure taking. You never did a stitch, and they gave you. First of all, you get bored in a certain way, but also you get a sense of disorientation in a certain sense. How can I really your pride or your sense of self become very low. Your self-esteem will become very low. There's a joke that they say this fellow came to a Rebbe, and he heard from that this Rebbe was a fraud, or this and that. They wanted to see, so he came to the Rebbe, and he sat down by the Rebbe, and the Rebbe says, Shalom Aleichem, this and that. So the man didn't say a word, and the Rebbe just sat there and says, I knew what can I give you this and that. So the man doesn't say a word, so the Rebbe doesn't say nothing. So he's waiting there about 5 minutes. So the man then takes out $100 bill, puts it on the table, and walks away. It doesn't walk away, he just sits there and so on. So he puts out $100 bill, so the Rebbe sees it, and takes it, and puts it aside, puts it in his pocket. The man is still sitting there. Another 5 minutes, takes out another 100, puts it there. So the guy who Rebbe sees it, takes the 100 again. He does it after he puts out about $300-400. So then the Rebbe says, "No, what did you come for?" She says, "I just came because I wanted to see what's the chazak of this, that you can keep on taking the money I give you without doing a thing for it." But essentially, what we're dealing here is a concept called Nam L'Ksufa. Nam L'Ksufa is a term which is used in the Zohar. It's used in the Gemara also. I believe it's in Yishami, I think. Nama means bread, lechem. Nama. Ksufa means embarrassment, busha. So what it means is lechem shel busha. Bread of embarrassment. What's bread of embarrassment? Bread of embarrassment, that's a literal translation, but figuratively what essentially means is that the neshama was constructed, and therefore the person in such a way, you see, that it cannot just take and take and take. Just like a poor man. When an oni has to take stock, he has to take stock out, he feels very embarrassed about it. He feels very bad. What kind of self-esteem does it give him? You see. And he's got it and he takes. The same thing. A person who has not earned or produced that which he's got in some way, has been responsible for it, feels a lack of pride, a lack of respect really. He cannot achieve respect, self-respect in such a way. You see. Therefore, this is the concept. The concept is the following. The neshama itself, were it to be put into a place like called Olam Haba or Olam HaTainim, and if the Rebbe would just give him the hatova, like all of it, keep on giving hatova, after a while the neshama would not be able to sustain that. It would not be able to sustain that hatova.
That's the question.
Why couldn't the neshama be created in such a way that it
the whole idea was the Rebbe to create something which is going to receive a toiv, right? Toiv meitiv. It should be a mekabel. A mekabel, I mean, it should be created in the way the Rebbe gives us the hatova, and it's just mekabel.
Yeah. So that's the question on Nam L'Ksufa. But before we get to this question, which is a central question here, let me just develop the concept of Nam L'Ksufa, and then you'll bring your question in. Nam L'Ksufa means when the Baruch made the neshama, he wants to be made the neshama, right? The Baruch is a mative, but the Baruch is b'shleimus, he's perfect. So when he wants to be mative, he does it in a perfect way. So when he was figuring out what's the most perfect hatova I can give, it's the perception of me. That's part of the perfection of what he does. Whatever he does is perfect. Okay. When he creates the neshama, and the neshama is a recipient, the makabel, the neshama is in such a situation where it can receive the hatova, you must be and receive the hanor, but after a while it becomes painful or very difficult for the neshama to begin to deal with that continuously. And since that hatova has to go the netzach nitzochim until the end of time, it cannot do it. So therefore the Rebbe cannot give the neshama the hatova in that sense. So what does the Rebbe say? The Rebbe says the following thing. The Rebbe takes the neshama and says to it, I cannot, because of the chesoron of Nam L'Ksufa. And it says the chesoron of Nam L'Ksufa lies in the neshama. Okay, there's something wrong with the neshama, the way it was constructed. Okay, such that it cannot receive continuously, endlessly. Okay, it must do something in some way to earn it. So that's what the Buddha says. He says to the neshama, look, I've constructed you so that you cannot be a true makabel. You cannot do it. So therefore, what I will now establish is the following. I'm going to give you the hatava, but not now. First, you must earn it. And if you earn it, you will get it. And by earning what you get, you no longer will have the chesoron of Nam L'Ksufa. You understand? Mm-hmm. Very simple. So hence, what entered into the world is called Mishpat. That's why Mishpat was made. Mishpat came into the world because of Nam L'Ksufa, din. Do you see what I'm saying? Because basically, because of the chesoron or the inability of the neshama to just take and take and take, you see, the neshama now had to earn it. But in order to earn it, many things have to happen. You see, many things have to happen. What's fundamentally to happen is that the Baruch now had to do two things. He had to create a situation, number one, where the neshama will get its hatava, and he had to create another situation prior to that, where the neshama will earn what it will then get later on. You see what I'm saying? The place, or the matzav, or the situation which was created to give the neshama its hatava, after it's earned it, is called Olam Haba. And the makom in which the neshama must earn it is called Olam Hazeh. That's the distinction. But why was the distinction made between Olam Hazeh and Olam Haba? Because of the cheson of Nam and the Ksufa. That's what the thing is. You understand the thing? That's the concept. We're going to examine it more deeply. But this is the fundamental thing. Once the cheson of Nam and Ksufa was established, then the Baruch Shem could only accomplish his tachlis. Right? Al-Yidei Din, Al-Yidei Schus, where the neshama is zurcha to its Olam Haba. Where it sees it, the schus, or right, ba'amola, b'shtadlis, by working for it, you see. Because then it will have earned it. Not the matana, or b'chinam, free, you see. Because the neshama cannot handle it. That's called the cheson of Nam B'Tzufa. So, in other words, what emanated from the Baruch Shem, at this point when the cheson of Nam B'Tzufa existed in the neshama, what emanated from the Baruch Shem was a series of activities. And this activity is called the Hanhogas HaMishpat. And what it is the Hanhogas HaMishpat is nothing more than those activities which emanate from the Baruch Shem, whose specific objective is to mesaken, or to fix, the cheson of Nam L'Ksufa in the neshama. You see what I'm saying? So you have to become familiar with these words. The Hanhogas HaMishpat refers to all those activities which the Baruch Shem did to see to it that the cheson, or the problem of Nam L'Ksufa, is taken away from the neshama. You see? So then, when the Baruch Shem created Olam Hazeh and he created Olam Haba, all these things come from the Hanhogas HaMishpat. Is this clear?
Hanhogas HaMishpat is
din. Even though, yeah, Olam Hazeh. No, Olam Haba doesn't. Right? Olam Hazeh comes from that.
But in what respect is the din created? What is the din then?
Din means that the Baruch Shem says to the neshama, I will not give you Olam Haba until you earn it. That's din.
And
din says,
and the Baruch Shem will be the one who's going to
judge. Yeah. But din is a barrier. Din says, since you can't receive what I'm going to give you for free, you must earn it. So din says from now on, you will never get Olam Haba unless you pass the trial, the din, where you're zoicha for it. That's what din says. Din is a mechitza between Olam Hazeh and Olam Haba. It's a mechitza, it's a barrier. And the only way you get from here to here, you see, is if you earn it, and you pass the din, the bezdin, which says you can pass. You can pass. You know what I mean? That's what din is. But din is a condition, it's a stipulation that says, what the Hanhogas HaMishpat is the following. The Baruch Shem says, I will give you my hatava on the condition that you have earned it.
But originally that was not the
No.
condition.
Before the cheson of Nam L'Ksufa, there was no condition. It was the Ratzon HaHeitiv is simply a Ratzon HaHeitiv. Right? The Ratzon HaHeitiv says, the Baruch Shem simply says, I want to be made there. There's no condition to that hatava. But because of the cheson of Nam L'Ksufa, it was necessary to create a condition, you see, where the neshama has to earn it, and that necessitated the creation of Olam Hazeh, or a place where these conditions is realized. Then he can earn Olam Haba. So therefore, Hanhogas HaMishpat is the way the Baruch Shem achieves the hatava. You see, so therefore, the Hanhogas HaMishpat are all those activities whose basic the goal is to achieve the hatava through the stipulation of din, of schus.
When was the Hanhogas HaMishpat created?
What?
When was that created?
That was the beginning, obviously, but as soon as the Shnei was created, there was Nam L'Ksufa.
Oh, so that was right away.
Right away, the beginning, at the outset it was.
And that was designed?
Now, we're going to get into that problem in a second. What does that make sense?
Originally you said that Odin wouldn't have eaten in the age, then it would have been right away, right?
No, because he would have done that din.
He would have earned it.
He would have earned it by not eating from the gun. That when the Baruch Shem says, you shouldn't even eat, that was the shtatus. You see, without that, the Baruch Shem would simply say to Adam, look, here's the two Adam, here's the hatava. Now you got it. He didn't say that. He first said, I don't want you to eat from the eighth. That's your Nisoyim. You see, if you pass the Nisoyim, you get Olam Haba.
So that was Hanhogas HaDin.
Hanhogas HaMishpat. Hanhogas HaMishpat came out of the problem of Nam L'Ksufa. The problem of Nam L'Ksufa was at the beginning. As soon as the Baruch Shem created the neshama, you see, there was a problem with Nam L'Ksufa.
So every neshama is created
there
with
was
this
one,
problem.
there was one neshama created at that particular time, and all neshamas were replicated.
There was no neshamas created at that particular time. What I mean is the following: everything that I've spoken up to now has never been. It's only theoretical.
Oh, you know, theoretically.
You know, see, what we're doing is an instant thing.
You're examining
The possibility. In other words, it's a havamina. In other words, we're examining step by step the process. You see, but those steps never happen because the world is not a place with this hatava. The world automatically is within them. That's when we're born, we see din.
Right.
But we want to know where is this from? What started this? You see? So we're taking it apart, piecemeal, piece by piece. And what we're saying, in the beginning, the Baruch Shem has really fundamental, there's a lot of hated. So in order to be mated, you see, you need a recipient. And you need a situation of atava. Fine. So, do it. But obviously that's not what this world is all about. So it's more complicated than that. So, what we're told is, the reason why it's not all about, because when the Baruch Shem created the Neshama, there was a situation in the Neshama where it was mechusa. It could not accept this hatava. It was a handout, you see. So therefore, we're going to go to that. So that's called Nam L'Tzufa, the chson, the deficiency called Nam L'Tzufa. Because of the deficiency called Nam L'Tzufa, the Baruch Shem therefore had to construct the world according to Din, which means he not only had to make a place called Olam Haba, but a place called Olam Hazeh, and put the Neshama in there, and give the Neshama a bunch of nisyonis and tests, and let it go through it, and let it go earn it, so that after the person dies, or whatever the situation is, the Neshama is then judged, and then it says, okay, you pass your test, you get Olam Haba. But all this comes out because of the Midas Hadin, but the Midas Hadin flows from the Hanogas HaMishpat, which basically is attempt, you see, to give the Hatova by removing the problem of Nam L'Tzufa. So therefore it made the Hatova a conditional on Schus. Does everyone understand what I'm saying? It's a very simple thing really. That's what we see. Now I just wanted what I want to see that we didn't go into anything yet. I just wanted to understand the words that I used. Nam L'Tzufa, the Chson of Nam L'Tzufa, the Tikkun of Nam L'Tzufa, the Hanogas HaMishpat. I've just thrown in about 3 or 4 technical terms, and I'll be using it from now on. I just want to understand clearly what these terms are. Okay? We're getting a little sophisticated now.
But yet you do find people that will be perfectly willing for the rest of their life to take a cover and not to worry about
There's
it.
no such person. When you examine his mind, he would have a rationalization or justification of why he should he deserves what he's getting.
So then you don't.
Whatever there is, whatever there is, you don't.
Yes, okay, if you rationale, but without rationale,
So there is fine.
There's no rationale in the Neshama. The Neshama can't say, well, the Baruch Shem gave me Yisuin for 400 years, therefore I owe it to the white man. There's no rationale there. What rationale can the Neshama give? It's awesome, it's created, it's fine, the self is aware of itself, and here it is.
At the primitive level, there's no rationale.
What rationale? What is he going to say? What is he going to say?
That's right. It's not like to fool yourself.
Fool everybody else.
Because he has to fulfill his need to be mated.
Who?
The Neshama did it because he had to fulfill his need.
Who? The what?
He had to fulfill his need.
He doesn't have a need. No, he has a Ratzon L'Heitev, but he has a Ratzon L'Heitev, but that Neshama can't, Mitzad Atzmoi, from its own self, it cannot take. It cannot continuously take.
Yeah, but from what he's saying is that Neshama said, look, I'm aware that there was a Ratzon to do a cover. So I'm created to receive it. I'm a lucky guy to receive it, and I'll take it. There's no problem with me.
Yeah, but okay.
So I'm doing in essence, so quote unquote, a favor, and I'm receiving it.
Okay, that would seem to be that the problem of Nam L'Tzufa says that that's not the case. That the Neshama has there's a basic deficiency in the system, in the Neshama, where it cannot take it just because the Baruch Shem wants to be made. That's the Baruch Shem's problem, not the Neshama's. The fact that the Neshama is here, right? The Neshama says, okay, you want to take it, give it, but I can't receive this. I've got to do something to earn. I can't sit there and taking the stuff. What is this? I can't, I can't handle this kind of thing. It's painful. Mitzad myself, I don't care why the Baruch Shem wants to give it. It makes him happy.
He doesn't take it.
What? He doesn't take it. That's doing. Yeah, that's not bad. But you know what the problem is with that? The problem with that is that for Netzach Netzachim, there's always Yisurim. And that's not Hatova. True Hatova is not, Buddhism doesn't want to suffer to make a song. The Buddhism wants to be native. Native means there's no agony in there. But his agony is acquiring the thing. That's not what it is. I mean, that means so as long as he gives it, what is Hatova? He's agonizing it. So what is this? This is Hatova? It's sensuous.
So once the neshama passes that barrier, it doesn't have that guilty feeling anymore.
It doesn't have that. And the thing is, someone told me that he saw in the Sefer when Rishonim said, it says it's the thing that before the neshamas are born, before the neshamas come down to the world, into a body, where are they? They're up in Gan Eden, and what are they doing? They're sitting, they're being the enemies of the Shekhinah. That's what you do up there. What it's doing. And they see the Hatava, but they can't take it. It's tsar for them. So in order to remove that tsar, they're funneled down into this world. That's what it is. They go through. Yeah.
They're so angry.
That's because the thing that they see what they have to go down into. It's not Pasha. So it's not so simple, to want to come down. And there's other reasons also. Because also the other things we'll get into, it's very complex. Again, we're going to go with the depth. Right now we're on the top level, the surface level. What? We're going to get. Don't worry. We'll deal with the question.
But the question of this whole thing, like why is that?
The fundamental question is why did the Banishim create the Neshama without deficiency? That's the problem. Because the truth of the matter is, look at this world. The world is incredible. How different this world. What is the whole thing? The whole din, this whole Olam Hazeh exists because of the Hanukkah Mishpat. Right? But the whole Hanukkah Mishpat exists because of the Tikkun of Namik Stufa, the Chson of Namik Stufa.
So we really have
take away the Chson of Namik Stufa,
so really
and you don't need the Chson of the whole thing.
We can't have a time to this world. Why do we have to go through it? Because it is actually we are the ones who created the whole thing.
We need this world has a very specific function, the vital function. Because the Neshamas cannot handle it. But the Shailas, like they say, but Yitzhak Mitzrayim, when the Banishim took out the Yidden from Mitzrayim, we should give Sheva Hador. Let me give Sheva Hador. Don't put me in there. I'll give Sheva Hador to take me out. You know what I mean? That's really fundamentally what if you're honest with yourself. I wouldn't even give you Sheva Hador that you're the
one who told me to go down there.
Yeah, you're the one who put me in there. You only give me Shua, like the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing. What is this? The same one is doing the same thing. So what is that? That's an honest question. The truth of the matter is that's a fundamental question you should ask by that Goda. Not Manishtan ala Hazeh. It's not Manishtan ala Hazeh. What's the thing? What is this? Because he took us out with Yod Chazok and Zoyin Tuya. Who told us to put us in? He also put us in with Yod Chazok and Zoyin Tuya. That's what it is. I never understood that. People sit there. People sit there the whole night. But what is all this about?
What is all this about?
Oh shit! I'm not going to get into Pesach now. No, that's the thing. But you'll understand Pesach later. We'll understand that. But the problem here is a very fundamental problem. We understand now the function of Olam Hazeh. Olam Hazeh is the matzav of Ishtadlus, of Nesoyim. It's a matzav of Yegiyah, of effort, which Neshama must put in order to earn its Hatava. So we understand very well why you have Olam Hazeh. You see, the shaila is, why does it have to put into the Ishtadlus? You see, why? The answer is because of the Chassan of Namik Stufa. Next question, one up there. Why the Chassan of Namik Stufa? Like you say, loy hain v'loy schorn. The whole thing. Yeah, well, is that exactly? You see what I'm saying? That's the question. Now, with this, we end tonight's share. Look, let me tell you something. Put the tape, Yeah, we'll try and do that, John. Does anyone want to say have any theories on this?
I just want to ask you, is it a constant state or is it very
That's a good question. I would think that after a while it becomes a constant state. Does it vary in intensity? I guess it does.
Yeah,
proportional to how much Hatava you're getting.
Every generation
gets smaller and quicker. Yeah.
Smaller in class, there's more. We're getting, I don't know if Hatava or not. I don't know if I'm using the right word, but there's Namik Stufa.
Did it change? No, it's not altered. It's never altered. Mischat Mudeus does not mean it doesn't mean to the shamas. It means the koichas that are expressive in the kriya.
That's how the Zion change as a result of it, though.
A lot of things change, but I don't want to
That's
get
why
into that.
in the beginning, all neshamas are created with the namat
Yes.
with the same as originally it was.
Yes,
So to say.
yes, yes. The problem that I don't understand, and we'll get to this later on, is that malachim don't seem to have that problem.
Yeah, but they're made from different substance. They're made from substance which you call ruchni.
Yeah. So is the neshama, much higher.
Yeah, but much higher.
But
Yeah.
what they're exposed to after.
Well, we'll see. We'll understand what I'm talking about very shortly. What the problem is. So, where does Nam Suf come from? It's a very difficult thing to answer. Where it comes from. Now, what I'm going to say is the following. Just remember one thing. The question is, the Rebbeinu Shem have to create the situation that way. So the answer is, he did not. You have to say that. Not to say that is a subtraction from his divinity. Hakol Yochel. He's not limited. He's not movable by and so on. So obviously, he did. So fundamentally, I don't believe we can ever really answer that question. I don't know if we can ever really quite. When I see it really answered, we see that the concept of Chazal Tshuva is at the fundamental point of creation. You know what I mean? So a question, why did the Rebbeinu Shem create a situation like this in the beginning? I don't know that we can answer that. I don't know. Really. Because the Rebbeinu Shem could have gotten around it. How can we say not?
It's really the same question as why did you need the
Lahatava. It borders in the same area. Yes, it does. Definitely. I'm going to try and give an answer, which I feel that the answer lies there. But you're going to see from it that it's an interesting answer. And I really feel that it's true. Except that when we see this, can we really say that the Rebbeinu Shem could have got even around that? Yes. Why didn't he? I don't know. I mean, you can always say, why didn't he get around this and that and so on. But let's see if we can't understand something intelligent about what the Chazal Tshuva comes from. Okay, so let's do that. In order to do that, let's go back to the concept of self. The Neshama is a very strange Bria, you see. Remember we said that when the Rebbeinu Shem created the world, he created two types of beings. One beings are called objects, or it. They're simply substances. They're objects. Then there's another thing called a neshama, a self, which is it's aware of itself. Remember that? It has self-awareness. Now, a neshama is not, therefore we said the neshama possesses a self, and that self is an I, capital letter I. It has an I to it. It has a self-awareness. You mean by I, the subject I, pronoun I. Okay. But the neshama is also an it, isn't it? It's an it because it's also a substance that was created too. You see, it's an I-it combination. Everything else is a pure it. You can be an it without being an I, but you cannot be an I without being an it.
The I is meshed into
it's meshed into the it, right? I mean, for example, it says, I know myself. I know myself. What's myself?
The it.
The it. You know? There's the, I-it. That's what it is. That's all it is. A self is nothing more. A self is nothing more than a being which is aware of itself. Itself. It's got an it to it. Okay. The interesting concept is the following, which is this concept. What is really an I? That I. What is a self? And we said an amazing thing. Well, let's rather start from it. The part of it. What is an it? An it is a being. It's an object. It's a being and so on. A being can you see? Can keep on receiving. It has no self. For example, you can the punishment could be mashpia, could send down rays and so on, and the it just receives it because it's inanimate. It's diamond, Kind of way, it's a total cover. It's a pitcher. Yeah, a pitcher. Keep on pouring water in, it keeps on receiving. The pitcher doesn't say I don't want any more water. It's a keli, and that's the end of it. Every it is a keli. A self is not a keli. The I of the self, or the I of the neshama, which is the self, is not a keli. It says I don't want. I cannot receive. The problem of Nam Tzufa rests in the self. The it part of the neshama wants the hatava. It wants it because the ruchnistic part of it feels good. You know what I mean? It feels good. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure, meaning that the hatava which comes down, the hanor, the which comes down to the neshama, right? when it hits the neshama, it comes into the substance, the being of the neshama, it feels good because it's pleasureful. What is pleasure? Pleasure is any kind of stimulus which is consistent with a thing's being, its existence. If a certain event or stimulus is consistent in the sense that it invigorates or it maintains or it supports or it strengthens existence, that's called pleasure. You see, if it is inconsistent with that, in the sense that it threatens existence, it's called pain. That's fundamentally what pain and pleasure are. You know what I'm saying? And there are many levels of it. Pleasure is nothing more than events or stimuli which are consistent with an object's being or existence. You understand what I'm saying? No. Consistent means, what does consistency mean? A positive effect. What
about no effect? What's that?
It's neutral. No, the pain, pleasure is neutral. There's nothing.
So there is another state.
Yeah, there is a state of non. There's non. There is another state.
It's like you're watching a hockey game and your team is winning. You get pleasure until it's winning. Then the minute you start losing, you start getting displeasure. So it's fictitious.
Yeah, but there are neutral states. We're going to go into that next week. And so on. So we're getting the question of will. I don't want to go into that. But fundamentally, what we're saying here is that that's what pain and pleasure are. Pain is that activity which is inconsistent with an object's being. What do you mean inconsistent? It threatens it. It attempts to reduce it, you see, in some way. It has it's negative in effect. Pleasure, that which is positive. It sustains it or invigorates it, strengthens, reinforces being. That's fundamentally what pain and pleasure are. So therefore, pain and pleasure is really synonymous with existence and non-existence. Mm-hmm. Really. That's really what it is. They both stem to be or not to be. That which says to me to be is pleasure. That which says not to be is pain. And that's really what it is. The pain-pleasure syndrome stems from really to be and not to be. Now, Hatava, Zichar is very good. Hazava is a real turn on, and it says to be, and it's really to be tremendously, you know what I mean? That's what Hatava is. So when the Neshama gets that, it's a real rush. I mean, you know what I mean? Really great, that feeling. Okay, where does the problem come in? The problem comes in from the self. Why? The problem not in the self is the I, the awareness, the self which is aware and which experiences the hatava, experiences pain from the hatava. See, as soon as you get hatava, it experiences two things at the same time: pleasure and pain. The self experiences both. The pleasure that experiences comes from the substance of the neshama, and the pain comes from the self, which transcends the awareness, behind the awareness, the identity. There's no, I don't want it. Why?
That's what we said before. That doesn't answer.
No, it didn't answer yet. But we're closer now. What we're doing is we're trying to pinpoint where Nam Sufa lies. Before we simply said, the Neshama, the Chson of the Nam Sufa, can't take, I'll tell you this, and that's the end of it.
Now you separated the Neshama.
Yeah, now we're examining it more closely. We're dissecting the Neshama.
Okay.
Right, and we're dissecting it. And when we put the thing on the table, we're simply saying, wait a minute. The Hatava affects the substance of being. So therefore, the Neshama says, great, give me more. Right? But the self part says, no, I don't want it. I can't handle it unless in some way I've done something to earn it.
Because it feels responsible.
Why? Yeah. So what I've done is I haven't answered the problem. I've simply, what I've done is I've isolated the problem more clearly, so I've locally identified where the problem lies. Okay. Does anyone want to think? It's a difficult point.
Before is isolated.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. So at least we now know it's in the self. It's in the I component, not the it component.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, in terms of like the I component, like the whole idea of the I is something which is aware of its own existence. The Hatava of the Rabbeinu Shalom is the perception of the totality of his existence. And such a totality is connected to the existence of the self because
but
something is
but then it couldn't exist.
Something is because the fact is that the emphasis that it couldn't because that would be taking away from the absoluteness of the existence of the Rabbeinu Shalom.
So how by earning it does it solve the situation?
Because that reinforces though the existence of the self because what it is doing is saying is that there is the I
that merited the understanding of the Rebbeinu Shalom. So, there must be an I.
Well, you can't say that. I mean, you can't, the point is that when the Buddhism created the Zulosai, there's a self. I mean, there's no threat to that self. I mean, Zulosai, but that's sort of not.
Would you say that you're responsible for your own actions?
No, you're aware that you exist.
Aware that you exist.
The Baruch created that the
Neshama which is aware of itself.
But the Neshama itself is a substance. Something with a
so we have the substance which is aware of itself. The substance wants.
A lot of things are aware of themselves. Some of them have this. It would be higher level. Almost like
the primitive cognition
that created something, given something that would be lesser than you.
And
you can't create something on this level.
But I'm saying is, like an object is not aware of it.
Yeah.
But
you want yeah.
An animal is aware of its growth.
Yes, so he created a smaller self. It's a smaller self. What should that have to? Why should?
I guess the primary.
Why therefore should that make it unable for the neshama to be able to take?
Talking about like if you go over and kick it, it's going to move because it knows that it's going to hurt.
But that's a primary awareness.
You're jockeying around back and forth. You're moving in a certain direction. Okay. The problem with you is that the neshama itself doesn't have a problem with self-extinction. It's not worried about becoming extinct or merging with the Banishim again or whatever the way it is. The Banishim created the Zulasai. There's a self.
But it doesn't feel like it has a right to be.
Why not? What?
It might be able to survive by itself. It didn't have that. Whereas Buddha created it with itself, with that realization of self. But yet he had to create this part that's missing, because otherwise maybe he would be able to survive by itself. It is itself. And somebody realizes that is a part, realizes itself, has a feeling of self. Yet it needed that other part. It needed, because maybe it would be too powerful, it would be able to survive by itself. Not that it would be another.
How could it survive by itself? It can't. It's an it.
What is it about us?
The self is only a part of the it, you see. The it cannot survive on its own. And it means that it's a nivra. That's it. It takes it. Can and it can. I mean, the neshama is nothing more than an it that's aware of itself. You know what I mean? But fundamentally, it's an it, like every other it, except that it's an it that knows itself.
And we?
What? We're all its that know ourselves.
What does it mean that you're aware of yourself?
You know, you experience.
You're conscious. That's all.
Awareness, which is the conscious state of awareness.
Like if a rock could think, that would also happen.
Yeah, but a rock can't think. But a rock is more than thinking. Thinking is part of consciousness. It's part of awareness. You are aware. You see, you're aware that behind that awareness there's an I, me. There's something behind that awareness, right? That's self.
You examine yourself.
That's self. Self is the I. The you which is experiencing. I feel. I know, I think, I want. All these things is I. Who's the I that's doing all these things? No, the I is that which is experiencing all these things. Behind it, it's beyond the experience of all these things. You see. You want what you want? Yeah. Oh, you want me now? It's 10. I'm trying to get it. You gotta go. Okay. No, it's all right. It's okay. Just catch the tape on that. Okay.
I feel sorry for him. He's not
You're gonna leave with a question on that.
Gonna fuck him
Now you can relax.
He is real.
Well, I'm saying is, I mean, there's something I'm not able to formulate on this, but in terms of a self seeks to do something to establish its own existence.
Yeah, but does it? Does it have to establish its own existence? It's not to establish its own existence. You're saying an interesting concept.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that the Shoma feels embarrassed just to be. Is that really true? the understanding is not true, that it's just embarrassed to take hatava.
Yeah,
I don't know that neshama is not. Yeah,
that is part of it.
Yeah, no, is it? Is not true for the inability of the neshama to exist, to be? It's embarrassed to be.
That's part of it.
Embarrassed to take it.
Yeah, it's embarrassed. It has to justify its existence.
Well, that's what people.
Its existence, or it has to justify its hatava. It's hatava.
But the whole purpose for existence is with a hatava. So therefore,
that's one the same thing.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it has to justify its existence in this hatava state.
Right.
But it's in the hatava state. But he's pointing the fact that it has to justify the very fact that it is.
But I'm saying is without the hatava, then it's left with the question: why am I? I mean,
why does it have to? I mean, it is.
Can I say that? Is it possible that to be in the neshama, to be a self, it has to have like a lack of understanding or something that about this hatava bit? You know what I'm saying? To be able to have that feeling of yourself, I think it's like a lack of understanding of HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
No.
It's something missing.
No.
No?
Can't. You're fundamentally yourself is a being. It's fundamentally it's you. It's that which makes you different from everything else in all creation, including the Bnei Shalom. It's the one thing which separates.
But maybe if you see, I don't even know what we're talking about with these terms. Maybe if you had this hatava, that would, if you understood I don't know.
No.
I don't
What you're saying is not wrong. That's why you can't understand the Rebbeinu Shalom to his completeness, because you are separated, you are a nivra, so to speak.
I mean, if you would understand to the completeness, you wouldn't.
You probably wouldn't be able to exist.
You wouldn't exist.
Right.
You wouldn't exist.
Because there has to be a certain gap.
Right. Because there's only one God. I mean, so you can't be in the same category.
What I feel is the answer that I want to give, although I think you're all tight, you're coming closer in on the grips, which is good. You begin to think in Hashkafa terms. That's very good. I'm pleased with that. Later on in advanced Yom, what happens is that we go into more into this kind of question. But fundamentally, what I feel is the answer, or the thing is, it's a strange thing. Is the following: when the Bnei Shalom needed a zulasa, he created a self. Right now, a self by its very nature is separate from God. That's called individuation. An individual. What's an individual? Someone who's alone and by itself versus the group. Individuation means the Bnei Shalom created being which is individuated. It means it has an aspect of itself that's separate from everything else in existence. That's self. When the Bnei Shalom created the neshama, then the neshama turned around and said to the Bnei Shalom, "You are." Right? That's an amazing thing. What essentially it's saying is that aspect called self is separate from the Bnei Shalom, isn't it? Right. Yeah, because when the neshama turns around and says to the Bnei Shalom, "You," the neshama is looking at the Bnei Shalom as an object.
Right.
Just as much as the Bnei Shalom is looking at the neshama as an object. That's the essence of separation. You see what I'm saying? The ability to look at someone and say, "You" means you're separate from me. You're separate from me. You're an object in that sense. Like an it is something else, because an it doesn't have to be separate from Bnei Shalom in some way. But there's an aspect of self which must be beyond, in a sense. And this is the question. There's an aspect of self which is not only. It's not a question that it's separate from the Bnei Shalom in existence. It's not. But there's a certain nekuda, there's a certain point, which when it says you, that is the essence of separation. Because you means I recognize that which is not me.
Not part of me.
I recognize not part of me, object. But in the same sense that I recognize you, that same differentiation says, the Bnei Shalom recognizes me as separate from him. In that sense.
You can't say on your hand you because it's part of you.
Yeah, and that kind of thing. Yeah. Well, in a way, yeah.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? The ability to say you means that you're separate from me. Because I'm looking at you as an object. I'm looking at you as not me.
Outside.
You see, you means not me. Not me means you're as separate and I'm separate. Only the self can do that. Only a self can say you, I. You see what I'm saying? So therefore, there's a certain kuda in the neshama, which is in a sense separate from the Bnei Shalom, isn't it? It's separate. Now, there's a big problem here, which we will not deal with. And it's one of those real biggies. And that's the thing. How could something be separate from the Rebbeinu Shalom? Eino Ibn Vadoi. See what I'm saying?
But no. But that was part of his creation. He wanted that self to think in that way.
I know. But how do you do it? How is it done?
So that's what you said. That it's not.
How is it create?
So that's
what you said.
That's what you said. There's nothing compared to creation of an Hashem. Nothing else.
I know, but still,
How can it be?
But the question still remains. How does he do it? What do you mean how we do it? Because you see, now you don't understand.
How does he do it?
Well, no, you see the problem of doing it. I'll tell you the first question. That's how. What's the central feature of it? And this is the critical problem. What we said from the first year when we talk about the Bnei Shem, what is the essence of divinity? Why is God God? Well, what makes him God? Because he's powerful, he's super powerful? No. Because he knows everything? No. These things don't make him God. They don't. What makes God God is one thing. He is existence. He is being itself. Therefore, nothing is outside of him. Nothing can have shaykhs outside of him. That's the essence of God. That's what it means, Hashem Echad. You see what I'm saying? Do you understand the thing?
Like you're saying, it's such an incredible thing.
Again, the Buddha suddenly makes something which is outside of him. How? How does he do that? See, before we said it's incredible that he can make a self, but now I'm saying what the marvelous. He's created one thing because we see that the only thing which is really outside of him, really, is self. Because self, by definition, says not me, you, not me. How does the Buddha do that? With what? You see what I'm saying?
Right,
because the concept of the Buddha is Ein Oid Milvadai. Why is Ein Oid Milvadai? Ein Oid Milvadai means he is being. You see? And therefore, since he is being, his existence is absolute. And therefore, the Buddha is the only Yesh. The only being or Yesh is God. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Because he is existence itself. He is the only Yesh. You see? Now, suddenly he comes along and he creates something else, which is a shtick Yesh or Ignovadoi.
Within that.
Right. That's not weird. Hashem is within what? The point is there's a Nikud in existence which is separate from him.
Right. Okay.
So therefore there's a Yesh or Ignovadoi, in a sense, outside of him. Because that has the ability to turn around and say you. You see? So, in a certain sense, it would seem to detract from the Buddha's divinity. You see what I'm saying? I'm not going to answer that question. That is an immense kasha. I mean, because we could ask this question before, but you understand it much better.
Right.
The question is, if the Buddha is Eino Eid Mavadoi, how do you make a Zuratzoi? It's a contradiction in terms. You know what I mean? Eino Eid Mavadoi says Eino Eid Mavadoi. There cannot be a Zuratzoi. Zuratzoi and Hatova means, and the Ratzon means there must be a Zuratzoi.
Right.
How do you do that? How do you dance this dance?
How did you do that, Todd?
What?
How did you get that by?
You weren't aware of it.
He got it by you?
Well, no, we'll get that. How to come? It's going to emerge from that.
Okay, so
To emerge. Well, hold on. You don't understand what I'm
you're
saying?
getting to it now.
Now, I don't believe we can ever answer that question. I'll tell you why. We can't. I don't think. Because basically, like this, we know everything, all reality, right, through concepts. We understand. We have an idea, a concept of a thing, right? But every concept is a positive thing. Can we understand, when we say something called non-existence, can we understand what non-existence is? No, why not?
Because everything exists.
Because when we understand non-existence, it's a concept, but it's a concept of something which is. So therefore,
It's an
essence, which is. So therefore,
exists.
we have no shaykhs to non-existence. Because,
That's true.
so therefore, we are skewed, we're slanted on one side. We can only understand existence. We have no shaykhs to understand non-existence. Because even when we talk about non-existence, it's existence.
We know it's something which doesn't exist.
Yeah, we cannot. Only the Buddhism can understand non-existence. Because he is existence itself. And, so therefore he can understand its negation. We cannot.
Why not?
We can't, because we cannot transcend our ability. We only understand something.
I can understand something that's impossible.
No.
It's a cube that's circular.
You can't. Now,
But something that is. If the cube is circular, you just can't put them together. You just can't put them together. But you have an
you
essence.
cannot understand
It's an
absolute
idea. It's an idea.
absolute non-being. You cannot understand that.
In other words, what would happen if some...
It's what you said, an
Think
existence
of nothing.
and essence doesn't have to be together.
Yeah. doesn't have to be, so you can't really find.
Yeah, for a second I could, why not?
No, you can't think of nothing.
you can't.
No, because the idea, the concept, non-existent itself.
You can understand. Being is not the
Yeah, but the idea, but that's the best we can get to the idea. The being is, it's not a being.
It is like
Non-existence is not a being. It's the total absence of being. There's no way for you to grasp that.
It is like what you
Because
said.
any attempt to understand that involves the notion of a being. Non-existence. There's a being called non-existence. That's absurd. That's a contradiction in and of itself. Non-existence.
I don't think Owen says that.
Non-existence is non-being.
So,
And any attempt to understand that means we understand it in terms of being.
it's the opposite of being.
But that's being already.
But that's being already. I mean, if you, how you can't understand non-being in terms of being?
You want me to take away the being and
That's right.
it by
You-
itself?
yeah.
Can you? It's like what you said.
It's not shaya.
It's like what you said, when we think of Rebbeinu Shalom as existence, we have to go a higher level because we think of existence as something
Yeah.
That exists.
Oh, it's the same phenomenon. Comes from the same neighborhood.
It's the same
Right.
thing.
You can't understand why.
Right.
Even existence of Rebbeinu Shalom we
That's right.
cannot because it's a concept.
Right.
Okay, why am I saying that? Because fundamentally, there's something called the law of contradiction. The law of contradiction is this: can something exist and not exist at the same time? No. Cannot. It cannot, and so on and so forth.
Only because the Rebbeinu Shalom chose that it would be that way.
No, it's not that he chose that. We cannot go beyond that. We can't
we
understand
created.
non-existence and existence at the same time. We can't even understand non-existence from.
But that's only in terms of the rules that Hashem put into the Bria. He could have put other rules into the Bria where
That's a
could.
shaila. That's a good question here. When you get on that's a very fundamental rule. It's a fundamental rule of existence itself. And fundamentally, the thing is, to reconcile the question of Einoid Mavadoi and Zulosai is really involved in existence and non-existence at the same time. Is that really the question? Because we're dealing with two contradictions, you see. And we can never be taken as a contradiction. And our realm, our existence does not allow us to understand that nature, we see it as a contradiction. We cannot understand that on other terms.
It's beyond our boundaries.
Yeah, it's very possible. It's beyond our boundaries to understand how a self, a Zulosai, can emerge from a being which is absolute.
So if
And
we
it does not
understand,
allow another non-self.
if we understand existence and non-existence, then we can understand the same thing.
Yeah, right. That's what I feel. Well,
Okay.
That's a stomach point. Okay, now, that's why I don't want to deal with that question. See, we can't answer. How can an Einoim Mamadu make a Zulosai? How does that work? You know what I mean? Okay, so we'll put that question aside. But it's one interesting thing is, and this is where we're missing the point. Let's look at the other side of the coin. See, let's forget about that problem, and let's say that this Einoim Mamadu made a Zulosai. Which obviously he did.
Whichever
So
way.
there's no subtraction.
Whichever way.
There's no detraction of the Rebbeinu Shalom's absolute quality. Yeah. But at the same time, the self is a self. It's separate in that sense. We don't understand how it could be. That's all. Okay. Now, what does it mean that the self is separate? Because it means an amazing thing. If the self has a certain aspect of individuation or separateness, to that degree, it's absolute. Because that's a piece of divinity, isn't it? Mm-hmm. To be purely unto itself, to be purely individuated, is divinity. Do you understand what I'm saying?
So that actually might be
So therefore, it's a yesh. So the self is in a certain sense, is an emissary yesh. So what I'm saying,
minuscule or whatever.
whatever it is.
Yeah,
In
this
other
is
words,
what's meant by Tzelem Elokim.
so in other words, the very interesting thing is, and so on, the very interesting thing is this, is that the neshama, since it can say you, not me, it has a certain aspect of separation. Forget about the problem.
Right.
It has, to the degree that it has separation, it is totally isolated and unto itself. In that sense, it has a certain aspect of divinity, you see. In that sense, it's a shtick like the Rebbeinu Shalom.
But then it should be perfect.
No, it's not like him, but in a sense, there's a certain nakuda which has a certain characteristics similar to him, because it's purely individuated. You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
It's a yesh.
Right.
You see, the British himself is not a taker. He is the creator. He's a giver. His essence is to create. It's not because he has no shaykhs to it.
Right.
You see, the I or the nakuda of that I has no shaykhs to it. It is only shaykh to I or give. You see, when that I merges with the it, there's a conflict. You see, the it part says take. The I part says give. Now I'm the you see what I'm saying? You see, we just did.
So what was
Yeah,
said was that the I is like the Rebbeinu Shalom,
In a-
before it has to give. But you see, that's not like the Rebbeinu Shalom got the other things anyway. So why does it pick up this?
Why is
trait
that?
of
Why is that an akuda? Why did it?
It's not a trait. It's not a trait. It's not a trait. The ability to be totally individual.
Means to give?
It's not, what does it mean to give? To give means to be the source of all being. That's what giving means.
Yeah.
It's the essence of existence itself. It's the essence of being. That's why it can give. You see, that's what I mean. And the neshama, to the degree that it has that nekuda of individuation, it has the nekuda of being a creator. You see,
Why does it
Because
it has the nekuda of absolute being.
Why does that make it give? Why
Because absolute being means absolute power. And absolute power, you see.
It's the same thing as the Rebbeinu Shalom has to do that we said in the beginning, Taiva Meitiv. And if you're saying
It doesn't mean that it wants to give. It doesn't mean it wants to give. But it means that it cannot take. Because absolute being says that
I have everything.
I have everything, or I am everything.
I don't need anything.
I am everything. There's nothing more for me. There's a certain completion in that I am. Such that what do you mean take? I can't take. It's foreign to me.
Also,
You see what I'm saying?
it's like then.
Okay,
Why do we need anything? If that's true, why do we need anything?
What?
Why do we need that? We have everything we want.
That's the
Right?
concept.
That's
No,
it.
the eye doesn't give you what you want. The eye just gives you the
It's
feeling.
It wants it.
Okay, let's go down.
Self, it means automatically that you have to. A self is just a self-awareness. But you can take. I don't understand why that means to give.
Okay.
I don't know.
It's more. Okay, let's see. Let's go there. It's a subtle thing, you see. It's a subtle thing, but well, it's like the same thing. You know, the same concepts. It just takes. It's not a very difficult concept. You know, just a question of thinking into it. And this is the Nekuda. The Nekuda of the Rebbeinu Shalom. You know, I don't know if you'll be able to understand this already because we already gone on time. But okay, try. Do your best with that. The Nekuda of the Rebbeinu Shalom lies in its capacity of absolute being. The nature, the definition of being means pure individuation. He is without coming on to anything else. And he is separate from everything else. Separation means that the thing is total into itself, you see. And only pure being is like that. You see. Okay. If the Rebbeinu Shalom is that, you see, being means being has the quality that it doesn't lack anything. Number one. Number two, it can't take from anything because it is everything into itself. If something has total separation, you see, then it's complete in a sense. In a certain kuda, it has a certain completion.
Is every self also an Einoid Mavadeh?
Who?
Is every self
Well,
an Einoid Mavadeh?
no, see, that's the thing. A self itself is not what would you. A self itself is not a Emes Einoid Mavadeh, but it has a certain nekuda of Einoid Mavadeh. It's a nekuda of that.
It is itself.
In the sense that it's able to say you or not me. It's able to be itself, totally separate from everything.
But there could be other things too.
Yes.
That's not negate.
No, it could be many other things,
Yeah.
but it is itself totally separate from everything, not needing anything else.
Why is that the same sentence? Why does it not need anything just because it's separate? I don't.
What's that?
Why does it not need anything just because it's separate?
Now, how can it not need anything and then at the same time need everything?
Because once something is separate, once it's separate, then in a certain sense it has absolute being. In a certain nekuda, it has absolute meaning. Because that's what it means. That's what absolute being means.
Absolute being means that, but not self. Why self is that?
Because that's what it is. Self. The fact that self is separate from everything else and it's totally individuated, you see, means that it has a certain aspect of total being.
What you're saying, let's say, if you in the
Of pure being itself. In a you understand what I'm saying?
what you're saying is, let's
But
say,
it has to be something your brother said that.
Chelik al-Kamimah.
It has to be that, otherwise I
No.
can't what you're saying.
That is the Chelik al-Kamimah.
Yes, you have to use that.
That now it fits in.
You have to use that.
Yes,
otherwise
now,
you
yes.
can't
The Zohar says, I think the Neshama is a Chelik al-Kamimah. It's a Chelik of the Rebbeinu Shalom, in a sense. So the big problem is, how could the Neshama be a Chelik of the Rebbeinu Shalom? The Rebbeinu Shalom is pure existence, is existence itself. The Neshama was given existence. You see. So the substance of the Neshama is a Nivra. You see what I'm saying? the neshama has as much shayach to the Rebbeinu Shalom as the malachim do. Nothing, you know what I mean? They're totally different kinds of being. You see what I'm saying? But there is one aspect of the neshama which has a being similar to the Rebbeinu Shalom, and that's called self. And it's similar in the sense that it is separated, absolute separation. That is the chelik el-kamimal. That's the nekuda, which is from the Rebbeinu Shalom. And that nekuda gives it a certain kind of shleimus, a certain kind of status, which, when it begins to take a lot, it's antithetical to that aspect, because it's what is this taking? What is this coming into me? I am totally separate, you see, and since I am totally separate, I don't need to be. I am already.
So what you were saying is we have to compare.
And since I am already, the fact that I'm getting everything, it's strange.
So what happens when you do something? When you do something to deserve it, all of a sudden you need it.
Because what happens is when you do something to deserve it, or you do something to earn it, what happens is you will have produced it. You will have produced it. That's consistent with the fact that you are the producer.
So what you're saying, does the Rebbeinu Shalom also need that? If he's a producer, does he need that we should give a Torah to him?
What's that? No, he doesn't need it. We need it in order to receive our Torah from him.
Then it's a contradiction.
Of what?
What you're saying is, in a sense, that we are aware and we are, in a sense, total, yet when we produce something, we want to get a reward for it.
It's not so much that we want to get a reward for it. When we produce it, we're not asking for a reward.
But we
cannot accept anything the Baruch Shem has to give us until we are the Baal of it. Until somewhere that self, you see, has put its imprint on it and said, I can now take it. I can now put it with my being. Because it can pass through myself as something that myself has stamped on it. The self has said, yes, I approve.
What you said,
I approve. You see, that's a manifestation of self. It's a manifestation. It's an activity which comes out of my separateness. I approve means I can take what you're going to give me because I approve. I, the self, you see, approves of things. You understand what I'm saying?
In other words, it's not a matana; it's a kinyan.
It's a kinyan. It's a kinyan. That's what happens. Is the ticket of the chesron of Nam Ksufa means that the only way the neshama can receive something is that the neshama is koinet. You see, that's what we meant by schos. That's a good word. That's the right word. It's not schos that the neshama has to earn it. What do you mean earn it? It means it has to make a kinyan. Why does it have to make a kinyan? Because that self must be satisfied. The self. And the self, since it's absolutely separate and individuated, you see, cannot deal with something just by taking it. Because it's inconsistent with its being. Its being says, I am complete in a sense already. I am. Just the fact that I can say I am is a madrig of being. You see what I'm saying? Your ability to turn around and say to the Rebbeinu Shalom, you, is a certain madrig of being. It's a madrig of individuation. It's a status of existence. It's a separateness, which is an incredible madriga. You see what I'm saying? That status of being is there already. You see, it doesn't need anything else anymore to complete that separateness or in any way. You see what I'm saying? It doesn't. That separateness is filled, it's full, and it's complete to the extent that it is. Wait a minute.
If you do any mitzvahs, you're full, you don't need anything. As soon as you do mitzvahs, you need more.
No, if you're a Russia, you're not kind of anything. So you can't even handle it. What happens if you're a Russia? Fundamentally, you're Russia, you're not Masach and the Sufa, so you can't receive anything. You can't receive anything because it will always be there.
In other words, let's say to understand the self, if we see the Rebbeinu Shalom as existent itself, and it means he has everything.
Yeah.
When he created the self, he took a piece of that portion of himself, and so to say, and he created himself.
In a sense, we can't.
I understand, but to understand the self, he took a part of that part of himself.
It's like a shadow or some kind of whatever the story is. It's like it's like a small thing, which is has like a a hair of divinity in it.
Right.
You know what I mean? But it's not real divinity.
I understand what you're
You know
saying.
It's like a stain. It's like a stain.
Right.
It's not the liquid, it's a stain of the liquid in a sense.
But if he's a self and aware, if he's a total being, he says, how can I get that? It's, you know, I don't need anything. I'm full. I don't want to eat anymore, so to say.
Because I am is total. I am is the completion of its being.
That's why you have to separate the.
I mean, you can't get more than I am. Because I am is pure separation.
Right.
There's no greater being than an I am. An I am is a real, you know what? It's not a greater.
That's why you have to separate the self and the substance.
That's right, yeah.
Okay.
So the it part of it says I need.
It's Gashmias and Ruchnias.
No, not really.
Yeah,
but you understand?
not that.
Right.
It's the identity
In
against
other words,
the essence.
the I am is a status of being already. It's something which is complete already.
But that
You see,
the
it's,
I and the M.
well, in the sense of the substance, yeah. But I
mean, without the hatava, it is still chaser is saying I need.
well, the it is chasa, right?
So I'm saying that's where the contradiction comes in,
yeah.
or else there would still, if there was just the I without the it, there would be no avoda because the I doesn't need the hatava.
In that case, the more you produce, so to say, the more hatava you will be able to accept because you will feel that you're getting it for what you did.
Yeah, you put your stamp of approval.
So the more more output you get, the more input you can receive.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, because you're not.
That's what I mean. The Fumtzara Agra.
That's right. So that's why you said if the Moshe doesn't do anything, he cannot receive
No, he
anything.
can't. Somebody can't receive.
But he still needs. That's why there's a problem.
That's his own Gehenna.
All right.
That's the whole nature of Gehenna. Is the fact
You see,
that
I'm saying a
he
little clearer.
can't receive, but he still needs.
It's not. Look, what we're simply saying is that when the punishment creates a being called an I am, you see, I am there's a self. That status of being is incredible. There's a certain completeness to that. You see, why? Because since it's separated or it's individuated, it has a certain aspect of its own power. You see, in that sense, it's like the Baruch Shalom. It doesn't need anything, and that kind of the self, the pure being of the self itself is like in a certain complete in terms of a certain aspect of its being. You see, so it can't tolerate this taking and so on. It says, okay, if you want to give to my needs, and I'll take. You see, but the I says, what do you mean? I'm already Muslim in a sense. So therefore it says, okay, so the one says, okay, so the only way to get this Tova through is where the I says, I put the stamp of approval on everything that comes through. That's what it is. So the I says, if the I expresses itself and manifests itself, and in that sense, you see, then it acquires the thing itself. It acquires the thing itself and it acts on the thing itself, so it belongs to the self. It belongs to the I, not to the Baruch Shalom. You see what I'm saying?
If you produce something, it belongs to the I, so you feel
the I is the Baal. The Baruch Shalom is not the Baal of the Hatava. The I is the Baal of the Hatava. I am the Baal of my Olam Haba, not the Baruch Shalom. Because he's providing the stuff. You see?
I acquired it.
It's mine. I am the Baal of it. And to a certain sense, I am the Boire, I am the creator of it. To that Nikuda.
But in that sense, aren't you rationalizing it? So you are giving a rationalization. Why can I accept it? You're giving to the it a rationale. Why can you accept it? Because I have produced it. So
it's mine.
I talk myself into now. I can now. I feel better for receiving it.
Yeah.
But in a way, it's a rationale again.
It's not a rationale.
Because he does no. Because he doesn't.
The being of it.
Yeah, but the I doesn't need anything.
But the it does.
Okay, but now it justifies for the it. I'll give you a justification.
The it doesn't need a justification.
I said for the it, I'll give you a justification.
Why justification is a bad word. What it means is that the I is not pain when that cover comes through to the it.
It's not pain. Okay, all right.
You see, it allows it to come through and it can feel it.
Okay.
You see, the it doesn't
need
a
justification.
Right, yeah.
It's a condition of being.
Because it's coming through. It's painful.
On the Shoma, which is attained. The treatment of Nam Kufa is totally different than the Shoma which has not. You see.
They both receive, but one is painful, one is not.
Yeah. Why? In the being of it's painful. Because in one case the eye was koinet, the eye goes through the eye is the koinet. In the other case, the I has not been koined, and the I resists it. You see.
What you're saying is wrong. The I also has to have a new of getting it, not just the it.
Well, the I feels the
it
hanor.
get it.
No, the I feels the
The
hanor.
I has to want it also.
Yeah. No, it has to want it.
You're saying it's letting it through just for the it part.
But I mean, it's the it that needs the
Yeah,
but
the I has to be I
doesn't need it. We just said the I doesn't have the I is complete. It doesn't need anything.
But the it, but it's
The I feels the hatava.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. But if we would separate the I and the it for itself, the I wouldn't need it. It's because they are together.
I also need it.
No, because the I and the it are together. No, the I and the since the I and the it are together.
I and it are not two separate
But that's the whole thing.
beings.
We separated, but the truth is that
That's right.
pure self above substance doesn't mean
That's
anything
right.
because it's already complete.
But we are a self.
We are
But
together.
self cannot exist outside of self.
That's right.
But
That's
you could
right.
That is only in the Rishonim, the I without an it.
That the fact alone that the I is receiving it is an for the Bnei Shloim, so the
Yeah.
I is giving an to the Bnei Shloim himself.
Yeah, but I don't like
You have it
that.
working both ways now.
No, but I don't like that. I know, but I don't like that because the thing you're giving something to the Bonishon.
Yeah, and that's
Because you put
needed.
the Bonishon on a taking side.
Then you
but
don't-
I don't know. I don't
that's already thing that they can
And I
get
realize
from
what
Torah.
you're saying. The Gemara says
Like this,
you give nachatuach.
Yeah.
You give nachatuach.
But what does that mean?
A need from his heart. It's
It's
your
not a
problem.
need, so it's not a need, but at least the I is experiencing the giving which it wants to give, and the it is experiencing the receiving
I
which
don't
it wants
think- I
to
don't
No, but the whole,
I don't
the whole
think
time,
that's what I'm
the whole, yeah,
I know,
but
but
the whole,
I don't want to come on.
but the whole
I don't want to say that the I gives to the Bonishon.
but
That's how it feels.
the whole
tackle
tachos of the Banishon is to give, not to receive. He's the giver.
I mean,
Good,
yes
so
and no,
what about
it's
the
a
guy
gift.
that kind of now has to feel that it wants to give constantly. So it has that feeling when it gives. It's a taker and a giver.
No, but that's a difference. But that is the difference. It is giving it to the. It is giving it. It is giving it to its own it. It is giving it to the it. Yes. Then you don't have to come on to it.
It doesn't have to give, but it's still
You
to
give.
What are you saying?
Yeah. He's justified. That's what
He's
he's
saying
justified.
that the Neshama doesn't have to give. He's going to, the Chasson of Nahum is not that the Neshama has to give.
It can't
The Chasson is
take.
that it can't take. That's a difference. And in order to take, it has to be kind to the thing and say, it's mine, so I can take
I
it.
deserve it.
I deserve it. It's mine. You see, I was kind of. But it doesn't say that I have to give. You know what I mean?
No, but we separated the I and the and the
I have to
it.
do
That's
something.
why.
I don't.
Really,
That's right.
the separation isn't there.
There's no
I mean,
separation, right?
That's
Yeah.
the whole point. Is
No, but
Since self is in a certain sense complete because it has an aspect of separation and it has an aspect of divinity. It's like it's like if you if you have a liquid in a jar and you take not a jar in a cup of coffee, and you take it's not exact mushroom but a little bit and you take the coffee and you put it out, it leaves like a stain on the bottom. The stain is like the neshama in a sense. Like the neshama is the stain of the Bnei Shalom.
If you make
In a certain
a surgery, then the eye does need it. The it is the one who needs it. So, but since they're together, you can't have them.
But they're together because the
Right,
I
so-
must exist in an it.
Right, right.
Oh, right, yeah.
Right.
So it's that right.
But if you would make a surgery between the two, the eye
doesn't need it does, right. Because the fact that the Bonishim creates, see, the Neshama has a big problem. That's the steer. The Neshama is a contradiction. It's an I and it at the same time. And this, in a sense, is a contradiction. Why? Because what it means is a self is zulosai. So it has a certain aspect of pure being. But the point is that Bonishim made it. It's not God. It was made,
It's a
which means it
substance.
possesses existence.
It's an essence.
It's a self. You see, it's the old story. It's a self which possesses existence. But to possess existence is to be
Be
totally
created.
dependent. You see, and yet the self is independent.
Right.
How could something be independent and dependent at the same time? It's the same kasha we have in the Eichel,
Right.
you know what I mean?
Right.
The same kasha that we have on the Bonisham. How could you have an Ein Oim Mavada and a Zolotoi?
Right.
We also ask on the Neshama. How could the Neshama be composed of two opposite things? How can it be composed of an aspect of being which is a separation? And therefore, in a certain sense, the Neshama has a certain quality of an Ein Oim Mavada itself. In a sense.
It doesn't need anything.
It doesn't need anything, and yet be composed, it possesses existence, which means in certain
It's
it
dependent.
needs existence itself. It is
Right.
it's needing existence.
One is dependent on
It
the
means
other.
that it itself is not existence.
Right.
It's not being. It's not separate. These two things are merged together. You see what I'm saying?
We file it in the same category.
We file it in the same category, but the contradiction exists in the neshama itself. But what I maintain that it's that contradiction which produces nam l'ksufa. You see, you know what I mean? You know, Kaviyachol, it's almost like you have a being which is a shtik bonisham and a shtik nivra at the same time. How that could be, I don't know. I don't know. It's a kasha and a bonisham also. How does he handle it? But whatever the story is, you see. But that fundamental difficulty is what creates namlik sufa. It's a friction between two aspects that cannot stay together, you see. Hence, the Nisham can't it cannot take Atava. It can't. It has no need, the pure stuff has no need for Atava, has no need for, whatever it has no need for that kind of thing. It's Muslim itself. It has to be Muslim. Because something which is separate is Muslim. Because Shlemus is nothing more than pure being. That's what Shlemus really is. Totality of being, you see. And so the Neshama has that in a sense. But at the same time, it was created, which means it was given existence. If it's given, it was possessive. So therefore, it is not existence, you see. So therefore, it is not being. And it's not individuated, you see.
Two opposites.
Do you see what I'm saying? These two opposites, in a sense, live in the same thing. That thing creates a state called Nam. I think that's what creates a state called Nam L'Ksifa. You see. So therefore, once the Banisham, in a certain sense, he's not stuck. But this is the schema. This is the strategy. The Banisham says, I want to be mated. Okay. But in order to be mated, I need a Zulasai. But a Zulasai, by definition, right? I need a Zulasai outside of me, which means I have to make a Yesh, another self, you see. But since I'm making another Yesh, you see, right? So he says, so therefore, my desire to be mative needs a yesh, you see. But the action of mative, which is atava, needs an it, a non-yesh. The neshama is somehow the fulfillment of both. So it's got to be a yesh and a non-yesh at the same time. You see what I'm saying? I want to be mative. I need a zalata, I need a yesh to be aware of it, to experience it. You see. But also at the same time, it has to be the object of atava. That's an it.
How does the Nitzayim switch it
You see what I'm saying? I don't know. So the Neshama, in a certain sense, is the fulfillment of two contradictory objectives.
Yesh, and he doesn't. Then the
You see what
objective
I'm saying?
won't be.
How does it handle? That's not Mitzvah. So it says, I can't handle this. So the Baruch says, how are you going to handle it? You'll reclaim it. All of a sudden comes out of Baruch he says, take the Neshama, put it aside, and the Hanhokas HaMishpat comes out and starts building. Olam Haba, Olam Hazet. You know what I mean? It starts constructing all those things which is now necessary to deal with that friction, which is the Chazon of Nam L'Ksifa. And that's what the thing is.
I don't understand. You can't. How can you merge them? One side doesn't need it.
Yeah, and the other side needs it.
So that's
I don't know. I don't know how these two things. I don't know how self, which is individuated, and it, which is non-individuated, could be at the same time. I do not know. But the fact that they are at the same time, and they have to be there at the same time, because Zulatza Hatova requires both. You see, in order to be mative, you need something Zulatza outside. You need something which is individuated.
But if it's individuated, it doesn't need anything.
But if it's individuated, it doesn't need it. But at the same time, to be mative means you have to be mative to something, to an object. You see, how can something be a subject and an object at the same time? If it's a subject and it's a zulatoi, it doesn't need to be. It doesn't need that kind of thing. But if it's an object, and so forth, in that kind of sense,
it can accept.
Well, then it can accept.
But the fact is that it's one thing. That's why there's a contradiction.
But you understand? But the unification of these two separate things. See, the Rotzen Lahativ requires these two. Rotzen Lahativ requires a subject and an object at the same time. You see, but subject and object, by definition or by Panemius, are antithetical beings.
Why is it that an
You see what I'm saying? That's the point. So to very simplify it, the Rotzen Lahativ requires a subject, which is an I or a self, and an object.
Why?
It needs two things. You see, that it needs both. But both of these things, when you examine it, are really contrary beings. Mm-hmm. You see, and yet they're put together in one thing, and it's that contrary nature which fundamentally produces Nam L'Ksifa. So therefore, the Baruch has to come around it by the Hanagas HaMishpat and the whole union of Kinyan.
Now, one thing: why is it that the Ratzon Lahativ cannot be satisfied with just an object?
Because it's not aware of itself.
Not aware of Hayatava. Hatov is an experience.
You can't.
Hatov is an experience.
This book cannot realize that you did something good to it.
If I take a beam of light and I shine it on the book, is that Hatova? No, what that is simply that the book is receiving light. It's reception. Hatov is not reception. Hatov is an experience.
An appreciation.
An appreciation.
That's what.
You see, the Hatov is not Kabbalah, it's not receiving.
To be mated, you need somebody to receive.
To receive. But to receive and to be appreciated receiving.
Right.
So the it is received and the I appreciate.
Yes.
Why is it that as much as we're learning here, as much as we're understanding more than we did before, there seems to be this crack following us?
What? Crack?
Like a crack following us.
What crack?
Right in the middle of it's like...
The line that we can't transcend in Chachma.
Because you see, the thing is like this, we are, where are we holding now? We're at the top of the whole pyramid over there, you know?
Oh.
And since we're at the top of the pyramid, we're talking about neshama, self, Buddhism, being, absolute being. I mean, we're talking about these things which are at the top of the thing and so on. And because they're the top, they're very close to the border of the Ein Sof, or the absolute of Buddhism itself. And you know, they kind of go over, you know, they keep on going north and south to the border all the time and so on. We can't handle anything which goes north of the border. You know, and it's not Yachulis to handle that, in that kind of sense. So we're forced. So and what goes north of the border are these contradictions. The Buddhism wants to be native, yet he doesn't have any needs. One contradiction. He creates Azulata, yet he's an Eidol Mavadoi. Another contradiction, you know. The Neshama is individuated, yet it's not individuated. Yeah? Every time we come to one of these real problems...
We perceive it as a contradiction. It's not.
Yeah, it's not. No, why? We perceive it because we're south of the border. We're south of the border and we're looking at under the border. But the Buddhism is north of the border and he sees what's going on. You see, we cannot deal with it. Because the essence of these things lies between the concept of existence and non-existence. To understand the relationship of these two things.
Are there human beings who understand this?
No, I don't believe so. I don't think so.